What if one of the world's most recognized charities for wounded veterans wasn't making headlines because of its inspiring competitors, but because of growing questions no one could ignore? For years, the Invictus Games stood as a symbol of courage, resilience, and hope. Founded by Prince Harry in 2014, the competition gave wounded, injured, and sick servicemen and women an opportunity to rebuild their confidence through sport. It quickly became one of the most respected international events supporting military veterans, with thousands of people praising its positive impact on lives that had been permanently changed by conflict. But today, the conversation surrounding the Games is very different. Instead of celebrating remarkable stories of recovery, public attention has increasingly shifted towards financial questions, media coverage, and the growing role of the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. What was once almost universally admired has become the subject of intense debate, with journalists, commentators, and members of the public all asking whether the event has drifted away from its original purpose. The turning point came after the 2025 Invictus Games in Vancouver and Whistler. The event welcomed more than 500 competitors from over 20 nations, bringing together veterans who had overcome extraordinary physical and mental challenges. Their determination was undeniable, and their achievements deserved the spotlight. Yet, as the Games concluded, many of the headlines focused elsewhere. Reports soon emerged that the event had cost more than 63 million Canadian dollars to stage. For an international sporting event, large budgets are not unusual. Security, accommodation, transport, venues, broadcasting, and accessibility all come with significant costs. Even so, the overall figure surprised many observers and immediately sparked discussion about how the money had been allocated. Financial commentators, journalists, and independent researchers began examining publicly available documents, hoping to better understand the scale of the spending. Some compared the published figures with similar sporting events for injured military personnel held in other countries. Those comparisons raise further questions, although organizers and supporters argue that every host city presents different logistical challenges, making direct comparisons far from straightforward. Even so, the debate refused to fade. Another issue began attracting attention almost immediately. Critics argued that media coverage appeared to focus more on Prince Harry and Meghan than on the competitors themselves. Newspaper front pages, television broadcasts, and social media discussions often centered on the royal couple's appearances, clothing, and public engagements rather than the remarkable stories of the veterans competing in the Games. That criticism has become one of the most divisive aspects of the entire discussion. Author Tom Bauer has been among the most outspoken critics. In interviews and in his writing, he has argued that the public image surrounding the event gradually shifted away from the competitors and towards the Sussexes themselves. Supporters of the couple reject that view entirely, arguing that their international profile brings valuable attention to the Games and helps raise awareness of veterans' recovery through sport. Whichever side people support, one fact is difficult to deny. The debate has become as much about public perception as it is about the competition itself. Then another development added fuel to the conversation. Questions were raised about sponsorship. Several companies reportedly chose not to continue partnerships linked to future Games. Businesses regularly review sponsorship agreements for a wide range of commercial reasons, so such decisions do not automatically indicate controversy. However, when multiple partnerships appear to change within a relatively short period, speculation naturally follows. At the same time, commentators began examining the financial report released by the Invictus Games Foundation. Particular attention focused on changes in grant funding awarded to veteran organizations, alongside increases in other areas of expenditure. Some observers argued that greater transparency would help answer the growing number of public questions, while others maintained that the charity had complied with its reporting obligations. As the discussion continued to grow, attention shifted from headlines to the financial records themselves. Journalists, charity analysts, and independent researchers began reviewing the publicly available documents, hoping they would provide a clearer picture of how the Games were funded and where the money had been spent. One figure appeared again and again in those discussions, more than 63 million Canadian dollars. While organizers have always maintained that staging an international sporting event involves enormous logistical costs, critics question whether every area of expenditure had been explained in enough detail to satisfy the public. Among those raising questions were individuals with backgrounds in finance who attempted to estimate accommodation, transport, staffing, venue hire, and catering costs using publicly available information. Their calculations differed, but many reached the same conclusion. They believed there were still unanswered questions surrounding the overall budget. It's important to note that these were independent assessments rather than official audits, and no evidence has been presented proving that funds were misused. Another issue soon attracted widespread attention. The Invictus Games Foundation's annual account showed changes in how charitable funds were distributed. Some commentators highlighted that direct grants to veteran organizations had fallen compared with previous years, while the foundation's financial reserves had increased. Critics argued this deserved a fuller explanation, whereas supporters pointed out that organizing the games themselves is considered a charitable activity, meaning expenditure cannot be judged simply by looking at grant payments alone. Even so, the figures prompted renewed calls for greater transparency. Questions were also raised about increases in administrative costs, executive salaries, and legal expenses. Large charities often see operating costs fluctuate from year to year depending on projects, staffing, and legal requirements. But public scrutiny naturally increases whenever organizations rely on donations and government support. Beyond the finances, another concern continued to dominate public debate. Many observers felt that media attention had drifted away from the competitors and towards the royal couple. Instead of hearing stories about remarkable recoveries, newspaper headlines frequently focus on appearances, speeches, and royal family tensions. Some veterans and supporters expressed disappointment that extraordinary achievements on the field often struggle to compete with celebrity coverage away from it. Others strongly disagreed. Supporters of Prince Harry argue that without his profile, the Invictus Games would never have gained worldwide recognition. They believe global media interest attracts sponsors, encourages donations, and ultimately benefits veterans by introducing millions of people to the charity's work. From that perspective, the publicity surrounding the Duke and Duchess is seen as an unavoidable consequence of their international profile rather than a deliberate distraction. The divide in opinion has only become wider.